A very good morning, students. So far we were completed around 6 chapters, and today we are going to concentrate on the chapter 7, that is human health and diseases. A very important chapter for your exam point of view. In this chapter we are going to discuss on three certain different things. The first one, that is, we are going to discuss about the various diseases. So in this chapter we are going to discuss about the various diseases. So here we are going to talk about certain viral diseases and bacterial diseases, then some protozoan diseases. In protozoan we are going to talk in detail about the life cycle of Plasmodium, and then the fungal diseases, and finally we are going to discuss about the helminthus diseases. So these are all the diseases part that we are going to discuss separately. And second topic that we are going to discuss here is about the immunological part. The immunological part is the body's defense mechanism against these diseases. How your body is acting against these diseases, how your body is preventing this microorganism that is causing disease. So that is what we are going to discuss in immunological part. And finally we are going to discuss some drugs as well as the adolescents. So today we are going to discuss about the immunological part of it, because among this everything is important, but ultra important is immunological part. So first we will discuss about all entire immunological content, and then we will be discussing about the diseases as well as the drugs. Okay, so now today we are going to concentrate on the human health and disease. Under human health and disease we are going to talk about the immunology. So first topic that we are going to discuss here today is the immunology. Now before we could study about this immunology, we have to know certain basic things regarding immunology, and then only you can understand better. Now immunology, here we are going to talk about two things. One is called the antigen. So in the short I will just write it as AG for antigen, and second one is the antibodies. So I will call it as AB. Okay. Now first we will talk about what is this antigen, and then we will come to this antibodies. Now these antigens are any disease causing microbes are called antigens. So antigen has the potentiality of invading into the body or affecting the host cell and causes infection. In the sense it will lead to a disease. So there are two type of antigens are there, but timing we will discuss about the antigen which is not belong to a particular human body. So these antigens are called foreign antigen. So this foreign antigen, it does not belong to their body, because we have discussed one antigen in the 4th chapter, you remember. In ABO blood grouping system, we talked about this antigen and antibody. A person's blood group A will have an antibody called B against that, but that antigen is different from this antigen that we are going to discuss here, and this antigen is going to cause a disease. So this antigen is called a non-self antigen. Now here this antigen is otherwise called as the microbes, as the potentiality of causing any infection in human. So it enters into the cells of the human body and affect the cells, causing infection and leads to a disease. Okay. Now whenever the antigen is encountering into the body, enters into the body, your body will start fighting against this kind of an antigens. So this body that is fighting with this antigens are called antibodies. So even we will call it as, it is called immune response. So what is response? Responding means it's a kind of a communication. If something is there, against that you are giving some comment, that is called response. If somebody is asking you a question and you are replying to that question, and that is called the response. But here your body is having immune response. Immune response means there are certain things that is protecting your body from this antigen, from this infection, from the disease, and that is called immune system. Okay, so your immune system, that means in our body we have got some immune systems, and this immune system will always defends our body through this antigens or through this infection. It will not allow this antigen to enter inside. Number one, even it is entering inside the body, your immune system will not allow the antigen to get infected, or even it is getting infected. So first one, it is not allowing it. Okay. Second one, even if it is allowing inside, it will not allow it to infect your cells or organs. Even if it is infecting your cells and organ, it will cure, it will destroy this antigen, and it will cure your body organs, body tissues, body cells. That is the role of immune system. So this immune system is acted out by antibodies. So antibodies are against antigen. Now here we got immune responses. Immune response means, I told you, if one is asking question and the other opponent is answering it, that is called response. So we call this antibody as an immune response. So that means this response is for whom? So antigen has entered into the body. So if the antigen has entered into the body, your antibody is showing, or immune system is showing immune response. What is that immune response? Fighting with this kind of an infection, fighting with this kind of an antigen, or fighting with this kind of a microorganisms. Okay, so this immune response has been done by the antibodies. So antibodies are helping for doing this immune response. So how this immune response is generated? Only when the antigen is encountered inside, only when the antigen has entered into the human body. Clear? Right. So that is why, since the antigen has the potentiality of generating antibody, it is called antigen. Antigen means generation of antibodies. So antigens are responsible for generating antibodies or immune responses. Clear? So this is the basic idea regarding this immunology. So what is, so all this together, this one entirely we will call it as immunity. Immunity means, in one sentence you can talk about, it is fighting against any disease causing microorganisms. That is what immunity is. How the immunity is formed? By the immune response. And who is responsible for this immune response? The antigen. If there is no antigen, there is no antibodies. So antigen has entered into the body, only then antibodies are synthesized. Is that clear? Right. That is called immunity. So now you understood what is this immune response is, no? Very clear. Immune response is, once the antigen has entered the body, your body starts to fight with this antigen with a weapon called antibodies. Where these antibodies are, it is there in our immune system. And this antibody shows a response to this antigen, that is called immunity. Okay, so you know what is now immune responses. Now I just add few more words to this immune responses. There are two types of immune responses that we have. So we are discussing about this immune responses now. So how many types of immune responses are there? There are two types of immune responses are there. Okay, so now I just come back to this once again. I'll just come back to this part once again. So we are talking about the immunology. Immunology in the sense we are going to discuss about our body's immune system. That is what immunology is. What is happening in our immune system? If this is our body, antigen is entering inside. So this is an antigen, it is entering inside. After antigen has entered inside, this is your immune system. In the immune system, what is happening? Antibodies are activated or antibodies are produced, and this antibody will fight with this antigen. So this is called as immune response. This is called as immune response, and this immune response is antibody against this antigen. So we call it this as immunity. So all the organism has this immunity in order to defend their body from any disease causing antigens or microbes. Now this immune response, I told you, it is of two types. So the first immune response is called the primary immune response. The first one is called primary immune response. What is immune response? That you know, that is the production of antibodies. So this is what the immune responses are. When antibodies are fighting with the antigen, that is called immune response. When someone is asking question and other is or the opponent is answering, that is called response. Here, this response and this questioning is done by your body. This response is done by your immune system. When antigen enters, antibody fights with it. Antibodies are produced and fights. So now this antigen is helping the antibody to generate. So it is called antigen generation of antibodies. Now this immune response falls into two types: primary immune response, and the second one is called secondary immune response. The difference between the primary and secondary immune response are very important, right? So now, what is this primary immune response? The primary immune response is once the pathogen, what is pathogen? Any disease causing organisms are called pathogen. Here we will call it as antigen. Once the antigen enters into the body and it has a contact with the body, now the body will start producing antibodies. So the contact is in the immune system. Okay. Now after the pathogen enters and makes a contact with the body, antibodies are produced, and this is done for the first time because this antigen has not known to this body. Your body has not known. Suppose you got a virus called coronavirus. This is an antigen. Okay. Your body does not know about this corona. So once antigen has entered inside, it starts to affect your cells. When it is infecting your cells, that time the immune system will recognize, it will learn the antigen, because your immune system just cannot produce antibody. It needs some time because this immune system has not known about this enemy called antigen. So after the antigen has entered inside, your immune system start learning about this antigen, and after learning about this antigen, the antigen will be recognized. Why? Any antigen, outer surface, it is made up of a protein called glycoprotein, like this. So antigen, antibody, both are made up of glycoprotein, but here we are talking about antigen, outer part is made up of glycoprotein. Now this immune system will study this nature of this antigen, learn this antigen, and then only it will produce antibodies. Okay, so a pathogen contact with the immune system for the first time. This contact is for the immune system. So antigen enters inside, contact with the immune system. Your immune system recognizes this antigen and then it produces antibodies. So since if it is taking long time for production of antibody, so that is why it is a very slow process. It is very slow, as well as it is only short-lived. Only some duration only. I mean, for certain days only it will be live in our body. Okay, why it is slow? It is because the slow process is the immune system has to recognize the antigen, has to learn the antigen, and then only antibodies has to be produced. So it will take some time. So that is what the primary immune responses are. So here the antibody level will undergo peak for around 7 to 10 days. The antibody level will be high. Antibody level will be high. And after that it will start declining. It will reduce. So this kind of antibodies are present in certain organs. That organs we will study later on so that you can understand. So those organs are spleen and lymph node. Where can you find this antibody? You can find on the spleen as well as on the lymph node. Very important. Antibodies are found on the spleen as well as lymph node. We will talk later on why it is there in the spleen and lymph node. Okay. So now you know what is antigen. Then you know what is immune system. You know what is antibody, immune response and immunity. Then you also know what is the primary immune response. Primary immune response means the antibodies are first time produced after the antigen encounters. Once antigen enters into the body only, your immune system will recognize that, learn about this antigen, and then it will produce antibody. So it will take some time for studying this. So it is very slow process. At the same time, the production of antibody will not be throughout the life. It will be there. It's a short lived. For 7 to 10 days, the antibody will be under very peak, and it is there in the spleen and the lymph node. That much clear, right? So now, what is the secondary immune response? Now, we talked about the virus called corona. Once it has entered inside, antibodies are produced in our body, and then what happens is the antibodies are there for 7 to 10 days, and then the level will be falling down. Now, the second immune response is for the second time. First time the corona has entered inside. Second time, the same antigen. Here we are talking about corona, but don't write corona. It is not there in the syllabus. I am just giving for an example to understand. The same time, again this coronavirus is entering into the same person. Now what happens? Already your immune system is there in the body. It will always maintain a kind of a memory. Immune system. Why? Because whenever your immune system learns this antigen, and whenever it produces antibody, it also produces, immune system not only produce antibody, it will also produce some cells called memory cells. Don't forget it, very important. Your immune system, after recognizing antigen, it will not only produce antibody, but it will also produce memory cells. Antibody level will increase or decreases, that is secondary, but memory cells are there. Memory cells, so your primary immune response works with the help of memory cells. Okay, in your book, you have to mark this one. Primary immune responses, memory cells are there. So what will happen? This memory cell will be there throughout your life. So second time, when the same antigen, when the same coronavirus is entering into the contact with the immune system, now who's there inside? You have memory cells. In the immune system, you got memory cells. Now the memory cells are capable of recalling the antigen's nature because it already studied. It read the structure of the antigen. It has recognized the antigen that is stored in the memory, and that memory is recalled. So what will happen here? This memory cell now will start producing antibodies against this virus. Already antibodies are produced. Now the memory cell know how to produce antibodies. So the production of the antibody is faster when you compare to this primary immune response. Primary immune response, it is very slow. Why? It has to read and it has to know the enemy of this. But second, it has known already because it is once fought with that virus. Now the production of antibody is increased. So here the immunity will always produce in a very short period. Okay, so second, so here in primary immune response, after the corona has entered inside, the antibodies are created, level decreases. Second time it is entering inside, that time the immune system recognizes that very faster, so the antibodies are produced in very short period. But here it is very slow. Here antibody production takes place in a very short period. So here this remain high for a larger period. So the antibody here will remain high for a larger period. Understand? So now here the antibody level, it will, where you can find only peak 7 to 10 days only. So there is a slow process. Okay, antigen is entered inside. Till 7 days antibodies are not. It's a processing of production only. It is peak only on 7 to 10 days. But in secondary immune response, the antibodies within 3 to 5 days, it is undergoing high. Okay, so here 7 to 10 days, by the time the infection will start more. But here second time when the same virus is entering inside, the infection will be less because antibody productions are faster. Within 3 to 5 days it is produced. Clear? So that is why even in coronavirus we are taking vaccine, we are taking second booster dose. In first dosage, what is happening? What is corona vaccination, that you know? Vaccine part we will talk later on. In vaccination, without the antigen, we are inserting a kind of antigen, okay, and to produce this antibody is a vaccine, okay. So here, first dosage, antibodies are created when first injection is given. So antibodies are produced, but it will take some time. Then in second booster dose, the antibody level is added more. So within 3 to 5 days, the antibody production is more. So here we require some. This second response is also called as booster response. Booster. Second time same antigen enter, it boosts up. So that antibody level. So for the time again and again this virus is entering, the antibody production will be faster. And it is much earlier, so that infection is being reduced. So where can you find this again, this secondary immune response? Same, even in the spleen, lymph node, and even in the bone marrows. Why here bone marrow? That we will talk little later, not now, because I don't want to enter another topic to this. Now you, for the timing, you understand the difference between primary and secondary immune response. Okay, now we have discussed about what is antigen, what is immune system, what is immune response, what is antibody, immunity, and what are the two types of immune responses, primary and secondary immune responses. Okay, right. So now we will talk about this immunity. So far we discussed the types of immune response. Now we will talk about the immunity, and then we will stop today. Now we will talk about, so far we have discussed about what is immune responses. Now we will talk about a very serious 5-mark question, that is in immunology we are going to talk about immunities. Immunity. Now you know what is immunity? That is, as soon as the antigen has entered into the body, it has a contact with the immune system, and your immune system will start responding to this antigen by producing antibodies as well as some memory cells. Okay, so the entire process is called immunity. So what is the ultimate aim of this immunity is to prevent this antigen from either it prevent the entry into the host body, okay, or it has to stop the infection, or it has to kill this antigen. So that is the ultimate aim of this immune system is. The immune system, after recognizing the antigen, it has to destroy this antigen, or it has to prevent its entry into the body. So to keep the body healthy. So how it is doing? By the B cells, by the antibodies as well as by the memory cells. Okay, so that is, so this entire process is called immunity. Now this immunity is of two types. The two types we will discuss now. The first one is called the innate immunity. Innate immunity. So we will first discuss about this innate immunity now. The second type we will discuss later, that is called this acquired immunity. So there are two types of immunities are there. Okay, immunity is to prevent the antigen entering into the body or to kill it. That is the main aim. Now first we will study the difference between these two immunities, and then we will start studying detail about this immunity. Now when you talk about this innate immunity, immunity is to prevent entry of the antigen into the body or to kill it. That's all. So this kind of an innate immunity a person acquires from the birth onwards. Clear? So this kind of a immunity is called from the birth, this kind of immunity is there. So it is called natural immunity. So naturally you have this immunity from the birth. So this kind of immunity is called natural immunity. That is number one. So from where you got this from? Right from the birth. So right from birth you got this kind of immunity. So this immunity is called innate. Innate means inborn, born within. So it is called innate immunity. Naturally it has occurred. So that is called innate immunity. And this immunity is also called as non-specific. Non-specific means it will not fight with only a particular antigen. It will not prevent only a particular antigen. It has the potentiality of fighting with any type of antigen. That is what non-specific immunity. In coronavirus, certain people are affected. Few people are not affected. Why? Because they have this innate immunity. That does not mean that we don't have it. The people who are affected, it is not boosted up. So this kind of a non-specific immunity is, it has the capability of fighting with any type of antigen, whether it is coronavirus or whether it is what type of virus it is. It can recognize that and easily it will prevent the entry of it. So it is called non-specific immunity. Okay, so it kills a wide range of these microorganisms. Clear? Right. So this immunity is called non-specific. So when you talk about this acquired immunity, the acquired immunity we gain it only when the person is living. On the lifetime we acquire some disease. We are affected with some disease. That times when antibodies are produced, that antibody is called acquired immunity. So it is gained after the birth. So after birth we have the immunity is called acquired immunity. Okay, this immunity is from naturally, and this kind of immunity there does not require the presence of antigen. Without antigen some immunities has been developed in our body, but here we require this antigen. So antigen has entered in the body, then antibodies are produced. That kind of an immunity is called acquired immunity, and this immunity is called specific immunity. Why specific? A specific antigen has entered into the body. Here no antigen is entered. So any type of antigen enters, or before that itself antibodies, immune systems are developed from the birth itself. But here for a specific antigen has entered inside, a specific antibody is created to destroy the specific antigen. And that is why this is called specific immunity. Whereas this one is called innate immunity is called non-specific. Whereas acquired is called specific immunity. Understand? That is the two things regarding innate as well as acquired. Innate you have non-specific, acquired is called as specific immunity. So now when you talk about this acquired immunity, there are certain unique features are there. Why? Because since it is a specific, it is having some unique characters. So it is having some unique features. What are all those unique features? There are three unique features are there. One is, already we have discussed, this kind of immunity is called antigenic specific. That means a particular antibody destroys a particular antigen. That is what is called antigenic specific. The immunity will fight with only a specific type of antigen. That is why it is called specific immunity. And second one is, it is called diversity. Diversity means it will fight with different types of antigen, not the same type of antigen. It is fighting with different types of antigen at the same time. Some vast number of antigen, more number of antigen also it will be destroying. And the third one, already we have discussed, it is having some memory. That means it can distinguish between two antigen. One is called self antigen, other one is called the foreign antigen. Only the foreign antigen will cause disease. Self antigen or belong to our own body, it does not cause any disease. So your acquired immunity has the unique features of distinguish between the self and non-self antigen, and it has some memory in it. So all these are the characteristic features of this acquired immunity. So acquired immunity, we will talk, this is having another two types that we will talk next classes, not now. Now we will discuss only about this innate immunity. Regarding this acquired immunity, we will talk later, and then we will enter into the cells of this immune systems. Okay, right. So we will talk about this innate immunity and its types. Now, innate immunity, we know we have it from birth onwards, and it is a naturally synthesized. That means without any infection or without any disease, it has been formed in our body, and it is non-specific. So the main aim of this immunity is not allowing this antigen to enter into the body. So this innate immunity has certain barriers. Barriers means it prevents this entry of the antigen into our body. So how it is preventing? By certain barriers. The first barrier is very important. Every 4 barriers that we will study. The first one is called anatomical barriers. So I'll just write it here. This is the first barrier. It is called the anatomical barriers. So anatomy, you know what is morphology and anatomy we studied. We know what is morphology. Morphology is external features, and anatomy is the internal features, internal body organs, everything is called anatomy. Here, certain organs that is involving in anatomical basis will prevent this antigen entering into the body. Now, there are 2 type of organs that we have in anatomical parts. One is called the skin. Skin covers the entire body. Now, the skin will not allow the antigen or microorganism to enter inside. So, how the skin will act? The skin is an acidic medium, that is, the pH of the skin is 3 to 5. The pH is 3 to 5. So it is acidic. The skin is acidic environment. So because of this acid content, it will not allow the microbes to grow in the skin. So that is how the skin will prevent the entry of the microorganisms. And the second one is the mucus. Mucus is a layer. You can find it from the mouth to the anus. So all this respiratory tract, then you will have this esophagus, then you will have the stomach, then this small intestine, large intestine, and the anus. Everywhere inside it is lined with a layer called mucus. This mucous membrane formed from the mouth to the anus, it has the role of entrap the microbes. Whenever microbes enter through the respiratory tract or through the food that we take, there are microorganisms unknowingly will get inside. So these microorganisms are trapped by or entrapped by the mucus and thrown out. So that is how the anatomical barriers are acting out in the innate immunity. There are skin and the mucus. So skin, due to the acidity, and the mucus will involve in the entrapment of the microorganism. So this is the first barrier in the innate immunity. And the second barrier is the physiological barriers. The second barrier, that is the physiological barriers. Physiological barriers. Certain physical things that will prevent the microorganisms. So even the skin and mucus preventing the microbes, in spite of that some microbes will get inside, and the physical process that is happening in our body will prevent these microbes. So what are the physical process? That is, the first one is the temperature. So here we talk skin and mucus comes under anatomical barrier, and in physical process we have got temperature. Normal body temperature, microorganism will not survive. Even when the microorganisms are more, the temperature will increase and results in the fever. Fever is a good response. You should always have fever once in 6 months at least. So if fever is there, the microorganisms are being destroyed because of the heat, because microorganisms will not survive in very cold temperature, very heat temperature, very hot temperature. So when the temperature is increased, it results in fever, and fever will destroy the microorganisms. This is one. Second one is the acidity of the stomach. Acidity, acid content. So this acidity of the stomach, so stomach will create acidic medium by the production of acyl acid, hydrochloric acid. So in the stomach we have hydrochloric acid. So any microorganism through food or whatever it is entered into the stomach will be destroyed by the acidic medium inside. And the third one is certain chemicals. We have two chemicals here. The first one is called interferons. Interferons are called antiviral proteins. Interferons. Now, what is this interferon? It is called antiviral proteins. It is against virus. So whenever a virus that enters into the body, they always attack the cells called WBC. When the WBC is infected with a virus, this infected cell will produce interferon, antiviral protein. And this antiviral protein will prevent the cells which are close by, adjacent cells, which are close by this infected cells. Okay? So, when this WBC is infected with virus, this produces interferon, and this interferon is preventing or protect the other cells which are close by. So, it is called antiviral protein. That is number one, secreted from the viral infected WBC. Okay. Second one is called lysozyme enzyme. Lysozyme is another important enzyme. The lysozyme is present in two areas. One is in the tears as well as in the saliva. Okay, this is called as antibacteria. The interferons are called antiviral. Lysozyme are called not lysosome. It is lysozyme, called antibacteria. It is there in the tears and saliva. We have it in the tears and saliva. We have antibacteria. So it will destroy the bacterial cell wall. It will remove the bacterial cell wall so that the bacteria will not survive, because bacteria to survive, it requires cell wall. If the cell wall is removed, the bacteria will naturally die. So it is called antibacterial agent. So these things are called physiological barriers. Temperature, HCl acid, then interferon and lysozyme. Together it is called physiological barriers. Understand? Right. And this third barrier is called phagocytic barrier. Phagocytosis is the third one. Phagocytosis. See, what we studied in anatomical barrier, antigen is not allowing inside. Skin and mucus will prevent it. In spite of that, the antigen has entered inside, it is destroyed by temperature, acidity, interferon and lysozyme. Even in spite of that, it is escaping and entering into the cell, and if the cell is getting infected with a virus, we are preventing this antigen not to infect the cell, but somehow it has escaped and infecting the cell. Now the cell is getting infected. Okay. Now what is happening is, the infected cell, when this cell is infected, now this antigen should not pass to the nearby cells. So it is being prevented. So what is happening is, phagocytosis taking place. Phago means eating. Who is eating? Cytosis, cell. Cell is eating. There are certain cells are there in the body, like macrophages. Macrophages, very important. Macrophages and neutrophils. These are all called WBC cells. Okay. Macrophages. Macrophages is a WBC, but you will not find it in 5 types of WBC macrophages. It is there called monocyte. Okay, monocyte. When monocyte is a one type of WBC. 5 types of WBC we studied already. Okay, right? Neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, monocyte and lymphocyte. This monocyte, whenever the cell is infected, monocytes are converted into macrophages. Okay, then macrophages will do phagocytosis. So what this macrophages will do, if this is a macrophage, irregular shaped cell, and this is a microorganism, this macrophages will form a structure called pseudophodia, a false foot, and it will swallow the microbes inside, and it will detoxify. it will destroy these microbes, detoxify and throw it outside. So that is the things done in the by a cell called macrophages or neutrophils. Okay, if the cell is infected, these macrophages will go and capture those antigen and detoxify it, neutralize it, so this antigen will not pass to another cell. So that is called phagocytosis process. Okay, right. So the fourth one is very important, that is inflammatory process. The fourth one is inflammatory. I'll just raise this one so that I can able to explain to you what is that inflammatory processes. Right. See now, the inflammatory process are, the fourth type is inflammatory process or inflammatory barriers. Inflammatory barriers. Inflammation means actually swelling. If you get hurt or wound, swelling takes place. There is an, why swelling? So this is a normal tissue. When the cell tissue gets injured, it is swelling. Why? Because here you will have accumulation of antibodies. Antibodies getting accumulated. Because of this antibody, it swells. So swelling is very good. Fever is very good. Fever destroys pathogen. Swelling, antibodies is accumulated because this area is affected, wound. You get infection. So these antibodies will destroy all the because inside if there is an opening, skin is opened, wound is there, there is a chance of antigen to enter inside. So antibodies are liberated there. Not only antibodies, apart from antibodies, you will have this phagocytic cells, group of phagocytic like macrophages will be there, and all these phagocytic cells, antibodies, everything will destroy this antigen, and this is being cured. So that is what inflammation is. So how this inflammation is done? This damaged tissue, okay, tissue is damaged, so this will release a kind of a chemical. This chemical is called vascular fluid. Vascular fluid. A fluid has been released out, this fluid. Okay, so when you get wound, you start bleeding, no? After bleeding, if you just leave that wound, you can find some watery layer will be formed. So that is called vascular fluid. And this vascular fluid consists of certain chemicals. So this chemical will form in our body itself. There are ambulance. If there is a wound is injured, if there is an injured tissue is damaged, immediately vascular fluid comes out. And this vascular fluid has certain chemicals. It is called chemical alarm signals. Okay, it is alarming. It is giving signal to the macrophages. Why macrophages? This chemicals, through this vascular fluid, it will signal it will send alarm to the phagocytosis, so that all the phagocytes will come and settle down in the area of infection. If macrophages are there, no more antigen will get inside to get infected. Okay, so it is cured. So the signal is given by the chemicals which is present in the vascular fluid. Who is giving signal? This chemical is giving signal. To whom? To phagocytosis. Now, who are all phagocytic? Macrophages, neutrophil, and some dendritic cells are there that we will study later. Now these chemicals will give signal to the phagocytosis, and the phagocytosis will increase more to destroy this antigen. So since this chemical is giving signal, it is called chemical alarm signals. So these chemicals are, three chemicals are there. This is a 3-mark question. Serotonin, then histamine, then prostaglandins. These are all very, very important chemical alarm signals. So these chemicals only is there in the vascular fluid, and these chemicals will give signal to the phagocytic cells. So now all the phagocytic cells in the body will come and accumulate in one place. That is why that area is swollen. Okay, right. So this is called the diaphysis. So a very important one, that is the inflammatory barriers. Okay, so far what we are discussing we were discussing about the 4 barriers of innate immunity. So how innate immunity is preventing the antigen entry into the body through this anatomical barriers, through the physiological barriers, phagocytotic barriers, and finally by inflammatory barriers. By all this thing, the body's immune system is been fighting, and this immunity, we got it right from the birth itself. So it is fighting with any type of antigen. That is why it is called non-specific antigen. Clear? In next class, we will discuss about this acquired immunity and certain cells that is involving in immunology. Okay, fine. So thank you very much.